All right. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Navarro, talking to you about the 5 C's of underwriting. I hope you've caught the first video where we just kind of laid it all out. Told you a little bit about myself, let you know that I've been in the game for a little while. So this thing that I'm talking about, these 5 C's that we're talking about, come from a place of knowledge, and hopefully you take them from a place of where you could learn from it. Because at the end of the day, the more we all know about what each other does and how we operate, the more likely we are to transact together and, of course, grow. So, again, welcome back. We've covered collateral. Now we're jumping into what I perceive to be one of the more kind of the one of the weirder things in our space, and it's credit. Okay, credit is, as many of you know, one of those things where it's absolutely necessary, but somehow, some way, the mainstream marketing message suggests that you could get into a loan with no credit. Technically, that's true. Anybody could do anything. However, the hurdles are much higher. The obstacles are much greater if you have, credit deficiencies or no credit, for that matter. So we're going to talk about credit. Hopefully, we could demystify it a little bit. If you're listening to this, watching this, and you've got some, credit blemishes, no credit, whatever the case may be, doesn't mean you have to turn this off. We're not going to say if you have no credit, take off. You can still transact. The transaction's just a little bit different. Okay. So I'll tell you, for me personally, I've been a banker for the greater part of 17 years. So I learned credit, not through my parents. In hindsight, I wish I would have. My children certainly will. I learned credit, the old school way, the old fashioned way. I learned it on my own in the real world. I remember, I mentioned in a previous video, I grew up in Miami, went to school here in Austin. And I remember going back home one summer and my cousin was driving a Corvette. And it was just the baddest ride he'd ever seen. It was something that I fell in love with instantly. I drove it for a couple of days. He let me drive it around. And I fell in love. I had a little college job. I was making college money, but I had no bills. So I was thinking, I could afford a Corvette. It was expensive, very expensive for anybody, but certainly for a college kid. So I came back home and I was just enamored. And I went to the dealership and I applied for a loan. I didn't know anything about this. I was driving a beat up Saturn, like a 1995 Saturn or something. So I went in there for, 2001 Corvette off the showroom floor, did my credit application, showed him my income, different story. And I got declined. I don't say this story often because nobody likes talking about decline or failure, but it was probably my first and only real decline in life. Typically other things you could just kind of power through. I took this one as a loss, but the reason I'm telling you this story is I didn't have the credit to get the car. Okay. Can I have gotten the car? Yes. Can I have had a parent co-sign for me? Sure. I don't think my mom would have been up for it, but that would have been an option. Can I have had a cousin co-sign for me? Maybe. Can I have had somebody gift me dollars to put more down payment? All of these things are possibilities, but none of these things occurred. So I was stuck and left to my own devices. I applied for the credit, got declined, and I learned a lesson. You need to have credit to have nice things. Okay. You need to have income to support a lifestyle of nice things. So talking about credit inside of real estate investing is kind of a unique and very dynamic conversation. One camp says you don't need it. The other camp says you absolutely do. Both are right, but this camp and this camp are going to operate at totally separate, totally different wavelengths. This one's going to operate a little slower. This one's going to operate with speed and predictability. So I want to tell you credit scores, credit ratings. Many hard money lenders or private lenders out there say, we don't look at credit scores. Little known fact or kind of little secret between all of us listening or watching this. Every lender looks at a credit score. Some don't care so much about certain blemishes, but everybody cares. And here's why. If a borrower, somebody who's looking to obtain a loan, has a history of missing payments. Let's just say something as simple as a mortgage. And by the way, making payments is hard just in general in life. But if somebody's missing payments on a mortgage, they're homestead, where they live and where they rest their head and where their family resides, what are they going to do? How are they going to treat their investment property? Okay, think about that for a second. If they can't pay their mortgage on their home, can they pay their mortgage on their investment property? Odds are they can't. If they have a history of that, odds are something will break down the road, and they will have it's a precursor to what's to come. So we all care about credit. Do we care about credit scores? No. Do we care about who's making payments and so on, or making payments on time? Absolutely. But in addition to credit scores, let me kind of back up to my business for just a second. We do care about credit score. Is it the primary thing? Absolutely not. I'd probably put it as number 4 on the list, maybe number 5. We're looking for somebody to have a credit score of at least 620. If somebody comes in with a credit score of 580, can we do the deal? Yes. Are we working harder to make that deal work? Absolutely, because we know that there's some credit blemishes in the past that could be reflective of what could happen in the future. So we're really looking for a 620 barrier of entry. Got it. Set that aside. Now you know a credit score. This is just me. Somebody down the street might say 580. Somebody might say 720, whatever it may be. I'm looking for a 620. But what are we really looking for? Okay, I've already mentioned mortgage payments. If you're not making mortgage payments, very unlikely that you're going to make your loan payments on your investment property. The big ones are going to be the following. Tax liens. Do you owe the IRS any money? This is multifaceted. It's not just credit and credit score. If you owe the IRS money, that money that's owed to the IRS takes precedence over our loan that we'd be giving you. So owing the IRS would make us a junior lien holder on your property. Making that or saying that in more of a layman's terms, the IRS gets paid before we do when you sell that thing. So tax liens are by far and away the biggest. The next one is judgments. Has somebody sued you, and has that lawsuit turned into a judgment where you lost, and now all of a sudden you owe this plaintiff money for something that happened back in the day? Well, if you have a judgment against you, similar to a tax lien, we absolutely cannot transact with you. Why? Because that judgment takes precedence over our lien. You have to pay that person back before you could realize any profits. And then finally, bankruptcies. This one is kind of a unique one because bankruptcy protection is made for exactly this. Bankruptcy could potentially wipe the entire slate clean. We just typically want to see somebody removed from a bankruptcy at least 2 years. You remember when computers came out? I think we still do it today. You go and you hit the reset button for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then you'd let go. A minute later, everything just all of a sudden works again. Same thing applies with a bankruptcy. However, if it's within the 10-second kind of reset, we're not willing to work with you just yet. You have to let go of the button and let the whole thing turn on. Approximately 2 years is the goal with us. So credit's really important. Little tip for those of you listening about credit and speaking to lenders and financial partners. Whenever you ask somebody, what are your credit requirements? You're going to ask them various types of questions. What are your credit requirements, credit scores? What are you looking for? All these things. Be very, very wary of vague answers. The reason I say that, and I just kind of urge you to take notice and to be mindful of who you're talking to, is when you get a vague answer, you're not speaking to a banker. You're likely speaking to an amateur who could potentially be brokering your loans to a number of different people and doesn't really have a good feel for the box. So when you're speaking to a lender, when you're speaking to a banker, you want to be working with somebody that knows exactly what they could do. So when you ask somebody, what are your credit requirements? You could answer with confidence. So that was the second C, credit. We've covered collateral. We've covered credit. Next, we're going to go to cash. This one right here, any blemishes that a deal may have, any blemishes that a investor may have, cash is the one that could correct it all. Looking forward to it.